Hi everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining me. I think we're ready to go. I am Jenny Southern, the editor, founder and CEO of Globe Trender, which is the UK's leading travel trend forecasting agency and online magazine dedicated to the future of travel. In short, it's our job to map trends and predict what's coming next for travel, tourism and hospitality. So, let me just see if I can access these slides. I'd love. Here we go. There's my contact information if you need it. And yeah, let's get stuck into the session. So today I will be giving you all an exclusive preview of our Future of Queer Travel Trend Report, which is being launched at a live event tomorrow at the Mondrian Hotel in London, in Shoreditch. TTG is a media partner, and I'm delighted to say that Sophie will be joining me on stage as a panelist. The full report will be available to download for free from our website, globetrender.com, on Thursday. If you sign up for our free weekly innovation briefing newsletter, you will receive a download link on the day in case you forget. In the meantime, please do not share any of these trends on social media. You are the first to know about them, and this report is not live yet. This is a project I have personally wanted to produce now for about 3 years, but it's taken some time to get off the ground. After I was selected as one of Attitude Magazine's LGBTQ plus travel trailblazers this year, I decided the moment was right. So I'm so pleased to finally bring this piece of work into the world as a start of an ongoing series of reports we want to do at Globe Trender looking at queer travel. And we've also launched a new queer section on our website for LGBTQ plus content. As a member of the queer community myself, I'm married to a woman and we have a child. I'm also in a unique position as an editor and founder and CEO to illuminate the travel industry and help inspire change, which is something I really want to capitalize on. Before we go into a bit of an overview of the queer travel market, I thought it would be helpful just to make a mention of the terminology I'm using. So Globe Trender uses queer as an umbrella term for people who are not heterosexual or are not cisgender, which means, which is a term that is used to describe people whose gender identity matches their sex assigned at birth. So we feel the time is right to reclaim the word queer and use it as a simple, inclusive alternative to the ever-expanding acronym of LGBTQIA+. Okay, let's have a look at some insights. So over the past 10 years, the queer travel market has grown enormously. When travel was at its peak before the pandemic, travel spending from queer people reached $218 billion worldwide. And I know that that's a stat that TTG has shared. And the LGBTQ plus community in the US, for example, is also responsible for 10% of that outlay. By 2030, experts predict that travel spending by queer travelers could reach $568.5 billion, a huge leap up. Why? Firstly, queer travelers are more intrepid and hungry for travel than ever before. They also have more disposable income. In the US, same-sex married couples in 2019 had a higher median household income than opposite-sex married couples, for example. And thirdly, the population of people who identify as queer is also increasing. Today, 25% of American Gen Z students identify as LGBTQ, according to recent research by the US Public Health Agency, the CDC. What this means is that non-cis, non-heteronormativity is on a steep upward trajectory. In 2021, a UK census revealed that 6.9% of Gen Zs aged 16 to 24 identified as LGBT plus, compared with 3.5% of millennials aged 35 to 44 and 1.6% of boomers aged 55 to 64. For the travel industry, this is a clear indication of distinct market opportunities, particularly among people under the age of 45. It's also an urgent call for better understanding and appreciation of this growing and richly varied consumer group. In terms of progress for LGBTQ plus human rights, there are steps forward and steps backwards. Gay marriage is legal in 34 countries now, up from 1 in 2001, but homosexuality is still illegal in 67 countries. In 2023, the president of Uganda signed one of the world's toughest anti-LGBTQ laws. At the same time, Latvia welcomed the world's first openly gay president. At Globe Trender, we are optimists. We strongly believe in travel as the ultimate expression of freedom and a unifying force that brings people closer together. Now, Globe Trender's Future of Queer Travel report features 8 trends and numerous case studies ranging from ex-passports to Destination Rainbow, which is a new travel agency for queer families. There is a huge amount of content in this report. It's running at about 50 pages long, but I thought it would be great to share with you a preview of 5 of the trends that we spotlight. So we're not going to go through all of them. You will need to download the whole report to learn about all of the trends, but I thought it would be good to get started with these 5, and the first one is going to be queer family travel. Now, queer family travel is our number 1 trend. In the world's most progressive countries, queer families have only been legal for about 20 years, meaning millennials are the first generation to be able to embrace queer parenthood in a socially acceptable way, with the law on the side of them and their children. In the UK, same-sex couples began being able to adopt in 2002. Over in Sweden, which is widely considered one of the most queer-friendly places in the world, insemination rights for lesbian couples weren't granted until 2005. By 2019, in the UK, there were almost 250,000 same-sex families, and that's an increase of 40% since 2015. As queer Gen Ys and Gen Zs, now at childbearing age, continue to fight for the same basic rights as heterosexual people, the world will see more and more rainbow families emerging, and many will want to travel. The problem is that when LGBTQ plus parents travel with their children, young ones in particular, they are outed all the time by cries of mummy, mama, or daddy, papa. And I can personally attest to this. My 4.5-year-old daughter does that all the time and embarrasses us in lots of hilarious ways, such as when a waiter delivered room service to us in a hotel in Ibiza, and she was jumping up and down on the bed saying, "I love you, daddy, I love you." And it's just, you can't predict what they're going to say. And you've got to be prepared for that. So what this means is that queer families need to be far more discerning and thoughtful about where they visit to ensure they won't encounter any homophobia. And there is an urgent need for expert assistance from travel advisors such as you to help them in their holiday planning and booking. A big reason we chose queer family travel as our number 1 trend is because of the publication of this important new milestone book, which was co-authored by my wife, Lottie Jeffs, and came out last month. In it, there is a chapter on vacations, which I contributed to, and some really interesting examples of how the travel experience of queer families can be different from straight families. One example comes from the other co-author, Stu Oakley, who will also be talking on our panel tomorrow night. And he says that even when you make a sensible choice about a queer-friendly destination, such as Cuba, you can't always predict what the other guests at the resort will be like. And in his case, he encountered a group of Russian women who left the table in the middle of their meal when they found out he was gay. They'd been admiring his 3 children and asked where their mother was. Our second trend is Pride Power. For many queer people, going abroad to take part in pride parades and parties are a major event in the annual calendar and an excuse to combine a vacation with hedonistic time with friends. It's also a great way to meet new people, to be more free to express yourself and experience cities at their most wild and fun. Last year, Gay Times magazine revealed that 60% of the LGBTQ plus community seek out experiences such as pride when they're away from home. And that was based on a survey of more than 15,000 queer people from around the world. So 60% of them seek out experiences such as pride when they travel. Tapping into the pink pound, pride events can be really lucrative for the travel industry. According to booking data from Airbnb, hosts collectively earned more than $77 million during pride celebrations last year. And this likely comes down to the fact that since 2017, the number of hosts around the world, that's Airbnb hosts around the world, using a queer inclusive language on their rental postings has surged by nearly 90%, says Airbnb. So the language you use is hugely important. Our third trend is community getaways. Now, there is a proverb that states, birds of a feather flock together. And this is very true of the queer community, which often can be very segregated, segmented rather, even within its own ranks. Many queer people don't have other queer friends, though, and are looking for ways to find connections beyond the dating apps. Over the coming years, increasing numbers of queer people will want to put themselves in real life situations where they can meet new people, be that music festivals such as Mighty Hoopla in London, nightclubs and bars, or community getaways, a new kind of group travel experience curated just for the queer community. We have already seen this in the form of gay cruises and gay resorts, but as people want to break out of the confines of those safe spaces, there will be demand for more intrepid journeys with strangers who will hopefully become fast friends. For the travel industry, this is a new opportunity. Innovators include Moonlight Experiences, which showcases queer nightlife in cities around the world. In October 2023, Moonlight will be partnering with Ladies Touch Travel to host a queer group trip to Bali. There is also Kontiki, which now sells pride-themed group trips. I think we're going to see a lot more innovations like this coming soon. Trend number 4 is rainbow rebellions. Now, we've coined all these terms at Globe Trender, and I think this is quite an interesting one. As every queer person knows, there are situations, often on a daily basis, where we know we have to modify our behaviour, protect our true identity in some way. While this is not an optimum way of living, this ability to social camouflage means that a rising number of queer people are willing to sacrifice personal liberties in favour of exploring destinations in spite of their anti-LGBT laws. I am certainly one of them. I'm a rainbow rebel. I've been to all sorts of countries as a travel journalist, and in many cases have had to actively hide who I am. I've been to Azerbaijan, the Maldives, Egypt with my girlfriend at the time. I've been to Russia. I've even been to some gay bars in Moscow. I've been to the UAE, Qatar, Malaysia, Indonesia, and even Iran. At that time in 2016, I hadn't written anything about being queer, so there was nothing online to reveal my true identity. But I did make my social media accounts private, and I was actually being hosted by British Airways, and we'd been invited by the government to visit the country as part of a press contingent. But if it hadn't been for those conditions, I wouldn't have felt safe to go, and now I definitely wouldn't go now. But there are places I would be willing to take the risk to go to. So today, broadly speaking, among a lot of privileged Westerners, especially millennials, for whom travel has felt like a right, being queer is not enough of a reason not to go somewhere. A sense of defiance combined with entitlement motivates them to book rainbow rebellions to destinations such as the Middle East, Africa, and other parts of Asia, such as Malaysia and China. Another reason is that local laws tend to be enforced often more on local people than foreign tourists. So as long as queer travellers keep their heads down, so to speak, they can avoid confrontations. In some other cases, the law doesn't actually match the reality on the ground. So, for example, it's illegal to drink alcohol in the Maldives, but everyone is drinking cocktails at the resorts. So, it's a grey area, isn't it? Anyway, there's lots more on that in the report. But let's move on to our last trend for this session, because I know it'd be nice to have a chat with Sophie as well. Our last trend is limelight gaycations. Now, I'm sure you've all watched a movie or a TV show set in a beautiful place and like you've really wished you could be there too. You actually feel like you're on holiday as you're watching it almost. So you're not alone. According to a 2023 survey by American Express, 64% of respondents said they made travel plans or were inspired to visit a specific country or destination after it was featured on a TV show or film. That's 64% were inspired by a TV show or film. For the queer community, limelight gaycations will be particularly in demand, especially as there is so much more positive queer content appearing on screens. In the past, leading gay characters would often just die at the end. So it's really nice to see this shift happening. Probably the hottest example of a TV show that's made headlines, not only for its brilliant storytelling, but for its cast of camp and queer characters, is The White Lotus, season 1 of which was filmed in Hawaii at the Four Seasons Resort Maui, and season 2 in Sicily at the Four Seasons Taormina. And I feel like everyone in the industry is talking about this show. But it's really, really popular among queer community. Bookings exploded to such an extent after it aired in autumn 2022 that the travel industry has been calling it the White Lotus effect. And there are high hopes for season 3, which is going to be set in the queer-friendly country of Thailand. According to the Four Seasons in Hawaii, after season 1, the show ignited a 425% increase in year-over-year web traffic for the property. So you can see how powerful it is. Boosting Google searches for masseria rentals in southern Italy is reality show I Kissed a Boy, which is airing now on the BBC. And it's set in a stunning renovated farmhouse with its own pool. It's essentially Love Island, but for gay guys. And it's the UK's first gay dating show, apparently. And the idea is that it brings together this really lovely, diverse pool of young gay men with the aim of finding out if a single kiss will spark a long-lasting relationship. And we will also be welcoming some of the contestants from that show at our launch event tomorrow night. And Calum, who is one of the participants, is going to be on the panel tomorrow with Sophie. So it's going to be really fun to hear from him. Other films and TV shows that inspire limelight gaycations include Call Me By Your Name, which is set in Italy. Then you've got Fire Island, which is a movie that came out last year and it's set on Fire Island, which is near New York. Then there's The L Word, which is set in LA, and Bros, which is set in Provincetown, New England. There's a long list and there are more examples in the trend report if you're interested. So that brings us to the end of my presentation. Hopefully we have a few minutes left to take any questions. I know that Sophie and I think are going to have a little chat. But yeah, I hope you found that interesting.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That was great. And thank you for giving us that sneak preview, because I know it is very strictly confidential until tomorrow evening. Exactly. Where can everyone read the report in full once it's published?
Yeah, so if they go to globetrender.com, we have a section on the website for trend reports, and it's going to be there. You can easily download it. It's free. You just have to put in your name, job title, email, and then you can just download it from the site. Yeah.
So that's globetrender.com, yeah?
That's right.
Brill. And just to touch on your first point, actually, about the use of the term queer, which we've discussed, I know as well. Just for those listening that might be new to kind of the whole sort of marketing and selling to the LGBT plus community, in terms of using that term, is it something that you would recommend those that don't identify as LGBT plus use? You know, how careful should they be with that term? Because it is a loaded term that does carry, you know,
yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, and I think if you want to err on the side of caution, use LGBTQ plus.
Okay.
You know, I actually was interviewing Bill Bensley yesterday, and he's a gay man, and he's in his 60s, and I was using the word queer, and I actually suddenly wondered whether that was appropriate. I wondered whether he'd feel uncomfortable about it. So yeah, I think you do have to have a little bit of sensitivity, but the shift is happening. The shift is taking place. We're spearheading the use of queer. My wife is with the publication of The Queer Parent.
Yeah.
I think now is the time that we all reclaim the word. So I'd like to feel that people can feel confident now to use it.
Amazing. Thanks, Jenny. I also love that you talked about gay bars in Moscow. I've also been to gay bars in Moscow. Maybe the same one. Yeah. So I'm clearly a rainbow rebel as well. I love that.
Exactly.
It did make me wonder though. So Booking.com last week, I think, or the week before, came out for the start of Pride Month with some new research talking about the fact that LGBT plus travellers still face, quote, enormous challenges when they're choosing where to travel. Is that the sense that you get? Do you get the sense that the kind of world is shrinking? You know, we've had so much negative, horrific rhetoric in the press, or is it just that it comes across as particularly negative and horrific at the moment because we luckily live in a much more liberal country that now frowns on that kind of words and stories?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? And I think overwhelmingly, I think there are challenges, very significant challenges for some queer people, especially say families, anyone that's particularly risk averse when it comes to booking a trip. Then there are challenges because you do need to really do your due diligence and do your research before booking. And there isn't really a up-to-date go-to website that every consumer will know about where they can find out that information. So you've got to like do quite a lot of Google research and trawling and read up on it and talk to friends and things. I think for anyone that is less risk averse and more confident about travel, especially sort of millennials, that generation of queer travelers, the feeling that I get is that people just you know, they might do some double checking online. You know, they generally know that like the Middle East is going to be tricky to go to, the Africa, you know, and they will just, there's so many other places to go to.
Yeah.
They just go there. It doesn't feel like people are stressing about it that much. And I think also it's a kind of case of just things tend to sound worse when you read about them on the internet, and then when you get there, it's like it's fine as long as you're not like kissing in public or something. You generally just get on with it, you know. But it does depend on the traveler. You know, for somebody newly out, it's going to feel more intimidating, and they're going to really want to be careful. And I think like going to a destination for Pride as their first trip would be like the safest bet. So it really does depend on the person.
And like you say, it's different with a family, and having a little one is likely to out you constantly and call out to their mummies and daddies. And it's probably a different world, I would imagine, traveling with a little one.
It is, and in the report, I and actually in a big piece I've written for Condé Nast Traveller, which I think is out next week, looking at specifically at queer travel, and I've spoken to quite a lot of different queer parents. One man who told me, you know, he's married to another man and they have a baby. He said that for him, travel it feels like a big backward step for him in terms of the freedoms they have. You know, before the baby, they'd go pretty much anywhere. Now with the baby, they do think so much more carefully about it, and they're so much more worried about homophobia than they were before. So it's an interesting realization to have come to.
And good for agents to be aware of the difference, actually, the nuances with family LGBT plus travel, as opposed to, you know, a group that may want to go on holiday or for a single,
Exactly. There are really significant risks, not just in terms of, an unwelcome comment. But if you're turning up at the airport at border control, maybe you've adopted children, but the paperwork doesn't match, the surnames don't match yet. That's scary, isn't it? You don't know what happens if they separate you, what happens if they quiz you, things like that. For trans people whose identity, outward identity doesn't necessarily match their passport photo, are they going to have a confrontation? Things like that. And so a travel agent really needs to make sure that the places they send their clients to are not going to be problematic for them in that respect.
And one last question, Jane. I know I'm running slightly over, but just to get one last question out of you. What would your advice be for agents that are perhaps starting out on the journey that want to sell more travel to the LGBT plus community, but just don't know where to start? It is Pride Month. Should they be donning the rainbow flag yet, or should they be doing something first before they do that? And how can they reach out and show their audience and their community that they are supportive and inclusive?
Yeah, it's such an important question, because I know that so many people do want to help. They want to do better. They want to be part of it, but where to start? So I actually gave this a little bit of thought, and I've written down some ideas. So firstly, download our report, because honestly, it's going to give you such a great foundation. Read it, download it and read it. Please do. Read The Queer Parent if you want to understand more about queer family travel and the different dynamics there. Read online content on platforms such as TTG and Globe Trender and Gay Times and Diva and Attitude and Pink News. Make more of an effort to understand queer culture. Watch I Kissed a Boy, watch the L Word, have a little dip into it. Inform yourself of the places in the world where gay marriage is legal, where the most popular Pride festivals take place, where the most dangerous places to go for gay people are, and where queer people can safely go as long as they modify their behavior. And there is a useful website which is called Equaldex, Dex, which I find is a really, really good resource. Inform yourself about what terms mean. So if you don't know what transgender means, if you're a bit unclear, just have a Google, try inform yourself. And yeah, I think, was there something else? Yeah, become an expert, I think, really, because if you do seriously want to work with queer people, you can't afford to really make mistakes about where you send them. If you send a gay couple to Jamaica, they could be for a really nasty surprise when they get there. So, you might want to invest in some consulting or training with queer travel experts as well. But, also in Pride Month, go to Pride.
Yeah.
In and get
everyone, right?
What it's all about, So yeah.
Yeah. And Pride welcomes everyone. I've been
my
straight mates to Pride. They
exactly. It's really fun.
Yeah,
it's quite emotional as well. I always find it's a powerful experience. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jenny. If you want to find out where your local prides are, there are lots of prides happening around the entire country. There's Manchester's at the end of August, I think. And Birmingham just had theirs. I think theirs was in May. London is the first weekend of July. Yeah. But lots of little towns. Even I'm from Newquay in Cornwall, and I know they have their own little pride, which I just love. They would never have jumped at that growing up, but I love that that's what's happening now. Thank you so much, Jenny. That was brilliant, really insightful. Globetender.com. Download the report from tomorrow, though. From tomorrow.
Thursday download. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Sophie, and see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Jenny. Yes, see you tomorrow. It's time now to move to our next session. So if you could all meet me there for our next live discussion with a fantastic panel as we look at how you can better support your LGBT plus clients in 2023. I will see you there.